Hello and welcome to an introduction to endocrine physiology for medical students. So, the endocrine system and endocrine physiology as a whole involves a certain set of endocrine glands as well as hormones. So, we're going to be covering these, but the endocrine system as a whole is essentially a communication system for the human body. It's used as a communication system. Communication systems, like the endocrine system and the nervous system, use a specific set of chemicals or messengers. The nervous system uses neurotransmitters, whereas the endocrine system uses hormones. We have different messengers for the different systems. But what's specific about the endocrine system is it uses ductless glands to secrete hormones into the bloodstream. It's different to the nervous system in case of the signals that it's using, and this is what's specific about it. Now, these communication systems are for a purpose, but what are these hormones? The hormones that the endocrine system is using are biochemical messengers or signals. What are functions of hormones? It includes metabolism, growth, maturation, development, and reproduction. These are a lot of the functions of hormones. Using this mnemonic, Dr. MGM, you can remember all of the functions. What about classes of hormones? When it comes to classes of hormones, there's three main categories, but this is not exhaustive. You have peptide hormones, steroid hormones, and tyrosine or amino acid derivatives. Tyrosine is an amino acid, so it should remind you of that. Use the mnemonic PEST, which is not the best, but it's a mnemonic. So, how do hormones work? Well, hormones are traveling in the bloodstream throughout the body, and our endocrine cells are secreting these hormones into the bloodstream. These are targeting cells, which are called target cells. And essentially, what's specific is that water-soluble hormones often have their hormone receptors on the cell surface, but lipid-soluble hormones or lipophilic hormones, their receptors are often inside the cell. So this tells us something. That might have gone too fast, but this tells us something. Based on the nature of hormone, where would the receptor then be? So, to break it down very simply, water-soluble and lipid-soluble hormones exist. Those are another categorization. Lipophilic or lipid-soluble hormones are able to cross the phospholipid bilayer of our cells and reach the hormone receptor, which is often for lipid-soluble hormones on the nucleus. However, hormones which are water-soluble will not be able to cross this phospholipid bilayer that you can see, and therefore these water-soluble hormones receptors are often extracellularly. What about hormonal regulation? Well, hormones are regulated in quite a precise way, and this is very necessary. They're regulated by feedback loops, and it's in a precise way. So what happens is we have specifically, it's regulated by the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is a small gland which is in our brain. And this is going to secrete factors which are going to act on our endocrine glands, which will then increase or decrease hormone production. If you don't understand that, wait for the next video. It will explain this in detail. So feedback mechanisms, essentially the feedback loops allow systems to maintain something called homeostasis. Homeostasis is essentially just maintaining a constant internal environment despite any external changes that may occur. The mnemonic here would be Macy-Deck. So what are the two types of feedback? We have negative feedback and we have positive feedback. These both work in different ways, but are equally as useful to the human body. Negative feedback, here's our example. Somebody with a normal body temperature, if they walk outside on a cold winter day, on a snow day or something, their body temperature will start to decrease rapidly. And this will cause essentially heating mechanisms to be activated, which is just a fancy way of saying they start to shiver. Shivering is a way of using mechanical energy to produce heat. This will then heat us down or heat us up. The body temperature will increase and the body temperature will return to a normal value. Likewise, if you go exercising at the gym or something, your body temperature will start to increase and you will start to sweat. Sweat causes evaporation of the heat that's on the surface of our skin, evaporation of water, which takes away with it heat, and then the body temperature will decrease again. So both of these are examples of negative feedback. It's not that one's negative, one's positive. Both of these are negative feedback because you're essentially reversing or reverting the change. If something's increasing in the body that's going away from homeostasis, away from a normal value, we will try and decrease that. However, if there's a decrease in anything such as body temperature, the body will try and return it to a normal value by increasing it. And this is negative feedback. Essentially, it's doing the opposite to try and maintain and go back to a normal value. What about positive feedback then? Well, positive feedback is more interesting because here, this is an example of childbirth. And it's really interesting. What happens is oxytocin is released, right? And oxytocin is produced by, I believe, the posterior pituitary, but we will cover that in the next video. The oxytocin that's released by the pituitary gland is going to induce contractions. These contractions are going to cause release of prostaglandins, which is going to cause more and more oxytocin to be secreted. But more oxytocin being secreted causes more contractions, and more contractions cause more oxytocin. And in this way, the body will keep on causing these contractions of the uterus until it's dilated enough for childbirth to take place. This is extremely useful, extremely important, and a really good example of positive feedback because it's kind of enhancing the change that's occurring. It's elevating it, and this is called positive feedback. There's graphs that show this as well, which we can look at in a future video, but that's essentially the gist of it. So that's it for now because this is only an introduction. Thank you for watching, and in another part I will explain the hypothalamo-hypophyseal system, which is really interesting. Give this video a like, and that's it for now. Thank you.